coolest things you can do as a UI UX designer is create sites with these incredible looking effects that just can't be found on the entirety of the web, user interface and animations that just make you go, wow, this is incredible. Today's video is going to be all about us making one such simple effect right here in Figma. We're taking a cake site and we're making this incredible animated hero section out of it. Let's just get started. To get started, just go to Figma, click on plus at the top, create a new design file, and this is going to create a completely new design file for us. The first step we're going to do is obviously create a frame. Go down to the bottom, creating a frame. MacBook Pro 14 is the frame that we're using today. We're going to have 4 different letters that are all individual placeholders for each image. So we're kind of needing to do CAKE as 4 different words. Fonts for today are going to be just a single font. It's Laundrina Solid, and you're going to make sure the font size is pretty massive. I think 500 should be good. Just going to get this right here, and we're going to duplicate this to a total of 4 times, just so we can have CAKE all separated and apart. The best technique for UIs like this is masking text as an image fill of each of these fonts and then cropping it out, and I'll show you exactly what I mean by that. Believe me, it ends up looking incredible. Now we've just aligned all of these so that they look equal, and then we're going to press shift select each of these at once. Click on plus right here, create a new auto layout, and then we can center this on the screen. Now this auto layout is going to help us make sure everything is perfectly spaced and used together very, very easily. And now we're just going to place this directly in the center. If you don't know how to do that, just go up to the top, click on this button, click on this button. Now you have something that's completely centered. The next thing we need to do is have all of these alphabets actually masking the 4 images that we want. So we're just going to go over here, click on image, and we're going to upload this image from our computer. Now you can find these images on our website, and once you've already downloaded these images, so I'm just going to create my first image as an image fill. I'm going to click on crop, and that's the way we're going to do this. We're going to drag this image out by pressing shift and then using one of these so that the aspect ratio doesn't get destroyed. If you don't press shift while dragging it out, you will destroy your aspect ratio and then you'll hate your site. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to create another image that is going to be the image fill for this one, and you can choose any image you'd want, but I'm just going to get the one that we always use. How about we get this one? This one looks great. And then we're just going to change this to crop, and you can use the press shift key once again to make sure everything scales up and down perfectly, nothing looks out of place. This looks quite nice. The next thing we're going to do is again another image fill right here, upload from computer, and I'm going to get the same exact image fill we've always been getting. Again, one of my main goals here is to make sure the exact element that I want aligns exactly as I'd want it to, and you can kind of have a lot of fun with it, experimenting on how things fit together, how actual objects inside of images look good inside of our UI designs, and you can try this on your own, and it'll give you a much better sense of how to get things right, how to get started creating an effect as fun as this, as special as this, as out of the normal as this. And people sometimes ask me whether this is even a practical thing in real sites, whether people would actually make it or would it even be applicable anywhere, and my answer to that is yes, absolutely. This is one of those effects that you think is simple, you think is funny in the beginning, and then you go and watch incredible sites like those on awards.com, and today's effect is so wonderful because on surface it looks like a very simple image effect that we're doing, and it seems like a simple animated thing that we're kind of making. But what people don't get so many times is these are the effects that will empower you to create your own sites like awards.com. I've gotten the question of how do I create a site like awards.com so many times, and one of the simplest, realist answers I can give you is when you start working with fancy effects, when you start working with actual animated themes and just doing a bunch of fun stuff, you'll start realizing how these things work, how you would animate something, how you would morph something, how you would mask an image, just as we did right now. And putting together that knowledge gives you the kind of skill set you need to create a site like the ones on awards.com, something that truly stands out from the rest of the world of UI design, something that truly sets you apart as a UI designer, something that makes you take pride in what we do. Alright, the next thing we're going to do is make sure each of these alphabets takes up exactly as much space as it needs, which is going to happen when we make sure we have auto width enabled for each of these alphabets. And once that is done, we're going to make sure the spacing here is perfect. I'm just going to adjust it right here, align it perfectly in the center, and now we have our first frame ready. The next thing we're going to do is duplicate this a bunch of times. Alright, so the goal here is to have 4 different versions of this entire image, because at the end of the day you could enable any of these and it would give you that image, the image that we're masking currently, in a full scale view, and we're trying to make that happen for each of these. So we're just going to kind of have to do that. All right, so the way we're going to do this is, let's say this is the frame that we get when our C is clicked on. And so the way we're going to do this is the only alphabet that will remain white in that case, and all of these are going to have white with the reduced transparency. So the image that's being used as a mask for the C is now a background image, and it kind of takes its own space, and you actually are able to see what you came here to see. And so we're just going to go over here to the bottom, upload from computer, and we're going to get our really nice looking cake image on the background, and we're just going to make sure it enlarges completely. The next thing we're going to do is go to the C, reduce the image fill to nothing, and then change the font color to white. And then we're just going to remove all of these, give them a white font color, and then reduce their opacities to a rough number. But again, the point here is, no matter what number you use for the opacity, this number has to be certain, this number has to be the same. So we're doing white with a 54% opacity, and that kind of remains constant. Now let's just put this right here, and now we have this really pretty looking image with us. And the goal here is, obviously, when you click on this single alphabet, you can get a screen that kind of morphs into this, and this is exactly what we're doing. The trigger is going to be, obviously we're going to go over to the prototype section, and the trigger is going to be on click. So when you click on this C, you need to swap overlay. This is going to be the overlay that we're kind of swapping out over here to MacBook Pro 14.2, which is the name of this UI. And the animation style is always going to be Smart Animate, because Smart Animate takes care of your layers and takes care of morphing and a lot of fancy stuff. And we're going to make sure the timing is going to be gentle for this one, because we just wanted to happen all nicely and gently. And again, we're going to start by testing this out in real time, because it's so easy to teach you things through a tutorial, and it's just much more practical and hands-on if you actually see what happens when you use any of these animations in real life. So we're just going to click on this C, and we get to see a very simple space where as soon as you click on this, you kind of get to see things morphing in very simply. Again, if you want to go back to the previous state, press R on your keyboard, and that's going to reverse you to the state that we were working with. Again, I like what it's doing right now, but it just feels very rushed and abrupt as soon as you start to animate anything. So the way we're going to handle this is, I want this orange image obviously to come in from right here as if it's appearing from inside of this C. And since we can't explain to Figma how this image fill and this image fill of these two different elements are the same, what we're going to do is we're going to create false starting points. So what we want right now is for the image that takes up the background when we click to have a starting point inside of this C. So we're going to have to create a false starting point. Right now, the way we're animating this is by using image fills inside of the C, but also we want a starting point that's actually fake to be inside of this over here. All right, so before we start doing that, I just wanted to clarify right here, auto layouts are very effective when you're trying to center stuff, when you're trying to align stuff, but when you start animating, sometimes it makes sense to get rid of auto layouts by clicking out of this button just for a second, just so you can have groups and not force things to be aligned perfectly all the time, just so you can have a much more easier time when you're doing this. So this is going to be our starting point. This is going to be the place where our image starts from. The best thing with auto layout is it takes care of your image if you let there be a starting point to this image. So instead of making this orange image a fill of our frame, we're just going to get rid of it from right here, add a plain black fill just so we can see what's going on. And now we're going to make this false starting point exactly the thing that kind of scales over here. So we're just going to make this as big as we can, put it right here in the center, put it exactly as we'd aligned the previous background fill, and this is now our final point of animation. And this is kind of the way we're ending with an image. So the entire point of doing this is you have this image that's kind of starting from C. We're masking it inside of C, but we still want it to start from over here and end up taking the entirety of this space. So this is just animation going from this rectangle to that rectangle, and the way we make sure this rectangle actually changes to that giant rectangle in the background is by informing Smart Animate of what's going on. So the incredible thing with Smart Animate as an animation function is if you put Smart Animate in the middle of any two frames, whatever elements inside of the frames have the exact same name, Figma will animate them together. So for example, if this C and this C have the exact same name, Figma will animate them together. This is rectangle 1, which is our false starting point, and this is our final end point, which is called rectangle 2. Both of those have different names, but we want them to animate as one singular object. So we're just going to have to change the name to be rectangle 1 right here. And now we're just going to go back and start to see what's happening. With that said, now let's just continue to do exactly what we've done over and over again for all of these screens. So just as we created a starting point right here, we need to have another starting point right here. So this is going to be another rectangle that can kind of hide behind the A. The image fill for this is going to be, once again, the exact same image that we've been working with. We'll get this right here, make it fit completely. It doesn't even matter the way it's fitting right now, because at the end of the day, when it animates, people will forget, people won't even remember where it started from. So it just honestly doesn't matter right now. We're just going to get this behind everything, copy it, and then just go over here, paste it. Again, this is the point where we are having a final animation stage, and this is exactly where it matters how well you can fill the image. So if you want the entirety of the image to be present, change the image fill to fit. And now we have whatever space we've been given, we have the entirety of the image with us. Again, you can adjust the width and height just for these things to line up completely. And once that's done, you can change this to be fill. All right, let's just make this bigger. Add this to the background, right click on this image, right click, send to back, and this is going to send our image to the background. Again, we're going to do the exact same thing we did right here. Select all of the images other than the current alphabet, add a fill of a plain shade of white with 54% opacity. Sometimes when you have a different image, you might want to have a little bit more or less opaque white, just so you have a clear visibility of what's happening in the background. Otherwise, this is going to fade out if you treat these like the same exact background color, because this is very, very dark, this is very, very light. And now we're going to make sure the current alphabet is always very plain and white. And once that is done, this is going to give us our second version of things. Again, I want to do this for K and E also. We're just going to get another rectangle over here, get another starting point from right here. We're going to upload a third image, open it up, right click, send to back, and I'm just going to group the exact same thing that we've been doing here, and I'm kind of going to do this quickly for the E as well. So we're kind of doing this in a bunch now. Rectangle 4 is for the E, and now we're just going to create another rectangle that's just going to go right here into the background of things, send it to be the biggest thing ever. Make sure this takes up the entirety of our space. Fit, scale this guy up, make sure it fits inside of the background of what we're working with. All right, we have a clear background. Now we're just going to make sure the three of these, which are not the alphabet we're working with, have a plain white fill, but also the opacity is down significantly. And the last one is going to be white, plain white. And we're going to repeat this for K as well. So we're just going to get one last image, which I'm pretty sure was image 3. Let's just get this right here. We'll take care of naming things at the end. I think we might have lost the false starting point for E. This might have been dragged to the other side. And so we're just going to give this E a starting point as well. Again, sometimes you just miss things, and it's okay to come back here, check if everything is in keeping count, and if you've not lost any image, if it hasn't just disappeared into thin air, and if it has, you just fix it. It's not a big deal. Again, we're going to fit this image, scale this up, put it right here in the background, make it take up the entirety of our space. And now we're just going to send this to the background of things. Again, naming conventions are very important when you're working with Smart Animate. Anything related to Smart Animate cares about name more than anything else, but we'll take care of it at the end very, very carefully. And every alphabet other than K is going to be white, completely white. Change this image to white with very subtle reduced opacity. And we're going to change this to a plain white color. This is done. These are all of the states that we're working with. Now we want to make sure every single name is exactly what we want it to be. So this is going to be the background for A. So just naming it BG space A. This is going to be the background for E. I'm naming it BG space E. This is going to be the background for K. I'm naming it BG space K. This is going to be the background for C, BG space C. And now we're just going to make sure all of these have the exact same names that we're working with. So C is the selected alphabet here. This image has to also be the background for C. This image is the background for A, so we're going to make sure it is also called background for A. This image is the background for C, so we're going to make sure this is called the background for K. This image is the background for E, so we're going to make sure it's called background for E. Again, before I start testing things out, I have to make sure we're actually prototyping things together. So when you click on this, it's going to go over here, and when you do a single interaction design in Figma kind of remembers it, and so instead of giving us a fresh interaction palette to start with, it gives us the exact same settings that we were working with for C and for all of the previous versions of interactions. So this is going to be exactly what we were working with C as well. This is going to be for K. This is going to be for E. The only thing you need to ensure is you have smart animate with a curve of gentle going. Again, one last thing we need to make sure is all of these images need to actually be inside of our frames, because these images are also structured inside of our frame, and every single positioning and name of elements that smart animate together needs to be exactly the same. Now when I click on this A, check it out you guys, this actually looks incredible, one of the best animations ever. And if you're wondering how I'm resetting these every single time I click on something, I'm pressing R on my keyboard. But now you might ask me, Veera, this doesn't seem like a practical way of doing things. Once I click on A, I have no way of actually going out to any of these other alphabets, and that's a very fair point. So the way we're going to handle that specific problem is we need two different ways out of this basically. So the first thing that we want to make sure after we're done with this basic animation is we need to be able to go out to this state. So even if I am inside of this A full screen cake version, I still want to go out to the home page, and that's completely normal. Another thing that we want to do is if I'm inside of the K state, I still want to be able to go inside of the E state directly without having to go back 2 steps and then being able to click on E again. Again, the goal here is to reduce the number of clicks that we want with any of these, just so we have something that makes sense for the user experience. And this is not just user interface, this is also user experience, making things happen with fewer clicks, making things happen quicker and easier. And so the way we're going to do this is, we obviously know all of these alphabets are prototyping going exactly where we want them to go. The first issue that comes to my mind is we still don't have a way from going from this UI to this UI, especially once we've already animated from here to here. And so we're just going to create a simple X to close out of this entire overlay so that we can go back right here. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to get an X icon. So I'm just going to go over here to the bottom to the plugins button and search for Iconify, which is my favorite place for getting icons, honestly. In plugins and widgets, I'm going to search for Iconify. This is going to get me Iconify, which is one of the best icon plugins in the world in Figma for UI UX designers. We can search for cross as well. This is a good cross. We're going to get this out right here, close out, and then make this as small as we want. So you can press shift and make sure everything scales exactly as you'd want it to be. We imported a pretty huge cross and it came with a huge stroke, so when you reduce the stroke, it'll look exactly as normal as you would want it to look. 18 pixels is what we're working with right now. I'm going to make this even smaller. Again, never get rid of the frame that's holding vectors, because if you do that, vectors will start taking any frame as their parent, so they'll kind of start working really, really weirdly and stretching out in ways you really don't want them to be. Again, long story short here is never take out vectors from their main frame when you're getting icons from anywhere. Let's just reduce this down to a 7. This looks fine. We're going to get this right here, change this to a white. And again, when you have something white on a light background, the way to make this pop out is you're going to add a drop shadow. We're going to make sure this drop shadow is shown behind transparent areas, because this is a transparent area that we're working with, and we're going to give this a little bit of a lift. Y2, increase the blur. Again, this looks good. And now we're just going to copy this and go to every single frame and just paste it exactly where we'd want it to be. Again, make sure to press the main frame, and if you have trouble getting this X exactly where you want it to be, select on this X, check out the X and Y axis values, and always make sure, even if this was located somewhere else, I'd still make sure my X and Y axis values matched and that I was actually outside of any other frame, and that would give me my perfectly aligned X. 1340 is the X axis value and the Y axis value right here was 78. So I'm just going to make sure those exact same numbers are retained everywhere. But if you select the frame and then paste something with Control V, then it'll obviously be placed where you placed it in the last frame. And now we're just going to do a simple prototype. When we click on this X, when we have an on-click trigger going, the action that it's going to take is it's going to navigate back to our first MacBook. Animation style again is going to be Smart Animate Gentle, and we're going to test this out on our own. Let's just go to the start, click on C. When we click on this, again, check it out, this happened so beautifully. When I clicked on it, it kind of scaled up. When I clicked out of it, it kind of went back exactly to where it came from, and it gives it a really, really nice effect if you think about it. And again, we're just going to do this once again for all of our different ones. Make sure trigger is on click, action is navigate to, animation is Smart Animate, curve is Gentle, and we're just going to do this over and over again. And once this is done, which I think it is very, very quickly now, the only thing that we're left to do is to make sure once I've opened this UI, I can actually go back to the C and the K and the E without having to go back to my home screen. So I just want to navigate to K and E and C from right here. And so we're just going to work on that now. The way we're going to do this is we're just going to go over here. So we basically want to click on this and be able to go over here. And again, the problem we're facing right now is we don't yet have a starting point behind this A or inside of this image somewhere that's going to lead us outside of this image. But truth of the matter is we need starting points for all pages except for the current one, just so we can have this whole system working, especially internally. So we're just going to go over here and take from the best. We're going to select all 4 of these backgrounds by pressing shift, and when you press shift you can select multiple things at once in Figma. We're just going to copy this and just hear me out. We're just going to paste it right here, and we're going to try to we are going to try to go to the design tab, go to the background, just align everything roughly to where it was. It doesn't even have to be perfect at this point. Just make sure it is behind the things you want it to be behind. You're going to send it to back, and you're just going to copy this. Make sure everything is inside of this frame, and then you're just going to repeat that again and again. Once again, we're going to make sure everything is inside this frame. Then again, we're going to put everything inside of this frame. And now one of the things that you might be noticing is this entire UI group has something in common. When all of these are behind our current background, everything is looking nice because these 4 starting points have kind of disappeared. But when these are in front of our image, then it becomes a problem for us because they're partially visible. So the thing to do over here is get the current image at the topmost level when you're getting things in line. When that is done, we also want to think about the fact that we have duplicates for a couple of these. So for example, when we go to the frame state for the alphabet C, now we have background of C twice. So we're kind of trying to get rid of that. Just make sure everything is present once only. This time we're going to get rid of the background of A. Did we somehow forget to import? I think we did forget to import these images. I think we've just done that twice over here for some weird reason. We're just going to get these images right here, send these to the back, and then get rid of background of A because we don't want 2 starting points. Once again, we're going to get rid of background of K, and these are the duplicates that we're getting rid of. We don't want to get rid of the original, which is actually what's making the background happen. And now we're going to get rid of this guy, I think. Yes, that's pretty much it. And now I sincerely hope this works. We're just going to get all of these, prototype them exactly to where they need to go. Smart animate, gentle, on click, navigate is just the continued thing we're doing now. And now we're just getting everything animated. It's not even difficult at this point. I think one of the bigger factors in the entirety of this endeavor is just attention to detail, which is funny if you think about it. That was me hoping this works. Let's just check it out. Surprise, surprise, this works, and everything starts from its own neat point. As soon as you want to click out of this image, you can do that. This is one of the most easiest UI effects we've ever done. Again, I love the way this turned out. If you guys have followed along until this point in this video and you've made this UI, go join our Discord group, link in the description and on the website where you got all of these assets and images from in the exact same link, and share it with me on our community's Discord. It'll be fun. We'll talk about it and you'll get to see all of the other fun variations that people are working with. I think this is going to be one of the most fun, interesting little UI design projects you can make on the side because it just teaches you all about smart animate, and it teaches you about animations, and it teaches you about full page hero section interactions, and you kind of get to see how you'd go about making something like this, and it's just one of the coolest things ever. I am so happy you saw this video. Make sure to like, subscribe, share this video with your friends in the UI UX design community, and I will see you in the next one. Alright, love you, bye.